Expanding our awareness, finding ourselves that there are more than 7 billion other people on this planet. Countless more than many other types of beings, animals, the insects, fish, the birds. Who all are equally wanting and longing for happiness. Experiencing unwanted pain, problem, heartbreak, and loss. And self-control. Tossed around by circumstances and often lost and confused. Source of happiness and wellness. So maybe we can develop a wish to give benefit, bring greater peace and happiness into the world. Develop our own inner qualities further and further. So that we can be ourselves and others. Hey, nice to see everybody. Well, as much as I can see. Welcome to this Discovering Buddhism class. This is the first class of the 10th Discovering Buddhism module on Bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is based on having a kind heart, a caring heart, a compassionate heart. And having a caring heart is considered the most important quality. The most important quality as a human being for our own happiness, for our own peace of mind, for our own feeling of well-being, our own ability to have joy, for harmonious relationships in our lives, and for us to survive and flourish and connect well with others. Heart, kind heart, we need caring heart in order to flourish as human beings. And I would venture to say to even survive well. Because we need, right? We need to feel connected with others. We need to feel cared about and caring for others in order to function well. And and if we think about it, when we were, when we're babies, right? Little babies. In order for little babies to just survive, right? They need love and affection and care. Babies lack that and die. So at the very fundamental human level, we need caring, we need affection. So for us just to be happy, others, others to care about us, others, others support. And then for our spiritual development, for us to progress along the spiritual path, and for us to achieve our highest potential, we need to develop our sense of caring, not for ourselves and for our friends and for our families, but even extending that beyond our friends and family, which we'll talk about. So we need a caring heart for ourselves as human beings and for our own development. And then also caring heart is needed for peace, and happiness, and wellness, and harmony in the world. But we see the lack of caring and compassion so much in the world. The violence and hate speech, the terrorism, the selfish, the selfish concern that's willing to follow their own needs and wants, even at the expense of others. We see, right, the problems of inequality, poverty that's not needed. There are enough resources around for everyone to survive and flourish. But because of selfishness, right, we let people starve, we let people allow poverty, we allow discrimination, racial discrimination, sexual discrimination, gender discrimination, and discrimination against LGBT because of a lack of caring, right? War, lack of caring. So we see the effects, right? We can probably point to all of the major, most if not all of the major problems in the world, and we see a lack of caring. So for us to flourish as a society, we need, and to solve the world's problems, more caring in the world would so much. And then we see the positive effects of caring, the loving parents, the health workers who are risking so much and encountering so much difficulty in this pandemic. Firefighters who are fires in Colorado and California this year and all over all the time to help us save our homes and save our lives. We see the caring of the grocery store workers who are continuing to work and provide us with food so that we can survive. And the kindness of bus drivers who continue to risk themselves so that they can other people. Caring of like so many beings, even the legal system, right? Right, and or the even politicians, some fair and who are trying to benefit our society. Uh, Without the caring of many beings, we collapse as a society. We don't survive as a society. And without caring of our planet, then we see the deterioration of our planet. Right, so that this caring concern is really, this lifestyle often kindness and for the benefit of our entire world. So when we have a kind, caring, compassionate heart, when we act out of kind, caring, compassionate heart, we treat others with genuine respect, care, with consideration, with a caring presence and caring attention. We listen to others with interest, acting out of caring concern. Treat others with dignity. We're kind and we're helpful to others. We don't look down on others. We don't dismiss others. We don't lash out to others. We don't intentionally harm others. And acting out of a caring. We don't treat others with disrespect. We don't harshly judge others. And rather than harshly judging, we try to understand the other's perspective. What is going on for the other person? What is that person needing? What is that person? What is going on for them in terms of their stresses, their limitations? And it's so easy and it's very natural for us to judge someone who is acting harmfully. But we try to train ourselves to, instead of doing that, and to be interested in caring about what's going on. And when we act with a kind heart, with a caring heart, others feel safe. Others don't fear being harmed by it. Others feel cared about, others feel cherished. And then others want to spend time with us. And when we're angry or lashing out, people want to stay away from us. Steer clear of us because they feel in danger. When we're acting out of care, others feel safe. And then there's more harmony and less conflict in our relationship. When there's a feeling of being cared for, there's a goodwill and there's a trust that builds in our relationship. And when we lash out, or when we dismiss, or when we treat others with disrespect, when we treat others with a lack of care, then that diminishes the beauty in the relationship. That harms the goodwill in the relationship. Damages the relationship. So, in order to have harmonious relationships with others, we need to have. So then, this also includes acting in kind and caring for ourselves, not being harsh, not harshly judging ourselves, make mistakes, and hurt others, or when we look at our limitations. Also, giving ourselves a break and being kind and caring to ourselves. Trying to reduce our harmful behavior. So here, and I've said this before, but it's such an important point, right? We need to distinguish between compassion and caring for ourselves, right, for the person, versus the behavior. So when somebody screws up, when somebody harms others, to be kind and compassionate towards the person, but not necessarily toward the behavior, to try to reduce and to stop the negative or harmful. So, when we kind and caring heart, this brings happiness to ourselves, and it brings happiness to others. Kind and caring heart, that brings peace to ourselves, peace of mind, it brings peace to others. It brings joy to ourselves, and it brings joy to others. It brings healing to ourselves. Care, loving care, have emotional healing. So it brings healing to ourselves, healing to others, healing to relationships. It brings kind and caring heart, brings connection with. Also, less kind and caring heart brings less fear, less stress, less anxiety, less anger, resentment. um, so when we have act with kindness and caring and compassion, don't take our frustrations and disappointments out on others. And so when others make mistakes, instead of harshly judging them and getting angry, as I was saying, try to connect with their humanity, not objectifying them and seeing them in our mind's eye as being this bad person, but a person who's just trying to be a person who makes mistakes and limitations. Try to connect and remember that they're a person who has confusion, they're a person who has limitations. they don't often have control over their own mind. We can look at ourselves, right? We don't always have control over our mind and our actions. So how do we can't expect others to control their mind and their so when we come from this place of compassion, it does not mean that we are a doormat on harmful. It's just meaning that connecting with humanity with kindness, care, not but not necessarily letting them treat us badly. We can set compassionate boundaries, and we need to learn to set compassionate boundaries. We can tell people when it's not okay and it doesn't work for us. But we try to do it without harsh language, without hurting. So we all have a certain amount of caring and compassion. Right? Caring and compassion is in our very nature. We all have caring and compassion for some people, for some beings, some of the time, for our friends, for our family, for our pets, some of the time. But the idea is for us to expand that out, eventually to try to include all beings without every being, each and every person we encounter, each and every animal we encounter, trying to keep an open heart, trying to keep a caring heart, trying to keep in mind that they're trying to be happy. Not excluding anyone, not excluding our annoying neighbor or our annoying coworker or that politician that we those that we disagree with. We're trying to include all beings. This way, we can have a more caring and peaceful and safe society. And in order to achieve our highest potential, we need to develop this caring and compassion, which may sound impossible. It seems to be very difficult, but it's a gradual training process. Gradual. Also, currently we have concentric circles. Like we care about our friends and family, who support us, bring us happiness, love us, who listen to us. And so our concentric circles of caring begin with me at the center, and then our friends and family. Well, we care, and then we care about maybe poor people, um, starving people, and then we care less about strangers. We care even less about the difficult people. So we have these concentric circles of caring with ourselves at the center. And then along the spiritual path, what we're trying to do is eliminate those concentric circles and develop a sense of caring for all, regardless, right, just because they're human beings. Well, not even just because they exist. Not because they're doing kind to us, but because they want to. And so the methods of developing bodhicitta are, um, are getting at that, getting to the point, step by step, getting from where we are, where most of us are now, with ourselves being our primary concern and our families being our primary concern, gradually expanding, deepening our caring for stable, regardless of how. So, what is bodhicitta? Let's start with what is compassion? And compassion in Buddhism is the, the wish. Oh, and actually, let's bring up the slide. The slide number 2. And probably this is a review for many of you. But yeah, but it's very useful to hear these teachings again and again, because we need to be reminded, once one, and second, well, that we need practice over time. And each time we hear these teachings, maybe something more, deeper will go in. Maybe we'll learn something, or maybe our understanding will. Maybe, hopefully, we'll feel inspired. And then we need, so what is bodhicitta? Start with what is compassion? The wishing that sentient beings be free from suffering. So this is, wishing, a heartfelt wish, a genuine heartfelt wish. Being is free. Whereas love or loving kindness is from the heart. This being that we're. And then bodhicitta is the pinnacle of compassion, the greatest compassion, highest level of compassion. And it's a compassion that wishes to free all beings from suffering. A compassion that understands deeply, stably, with a strong, deep sense of caring that everyone that were, right? I mean, some of you attended the last module on samsara and nirvana, where we really explored the issue of how just being in samsara, existing within samsara, being under the control of karma and affliction, that existence with the body and mind that we have taken in the nature of dukkha, the nature of dissatisfaction, the nature of suffering. So the deeper we understand that, the deeper we understand that everyone is suffering on some level, even if they're not suffering on a gross level, even if things are going well for them right now, underneath that, just being a sentient being embedded in that condition is the potential for future. Embedded in the very nature of beingness, under the influence, under the power of karma and affliction.
Emily, I want to share that I'm missing some words.
Oh, okay, sorry, thank you.
It's cool to hear the other one, so yeah.
I'll work on that. So embedded in our very nature, every single sentient being has the potential for future suffering. And as long as we remain in samsara, that is our condition, always the possibility. And so based on a deep understanding of that, then we can have genuine compassion for each and every sentient being. Then we can have genuine compassion for the people that are causing so much harm in the world. Have genuine compassion for those who are giving me a hard time. Right? We can have genuine compassion for the difficult things and genuine compassion for, for people we encounter on the street, even though we don't know them, we know and understand that they're suffering, they're carrying with them the suffering as long as they're in control. We're also carrying understanding that even those that have it all, even those that we may envy, the rich and the powerful and beautiful, successful, and those with big, beautiful houses and nice cars and many homes and boats, and right, those that seem to have it all, they also suffer, also have the potential. And those who are doing the most harm, when we really understand afflictions and karma, really understand the nature of this, we develop compassion for them even more. Most of all, they are the ones who are doing harm are the ones who are suffering the most and are going to suffer the most, creating so much suffering. Based on understanding that potential. The bodhicitta is based on understanding, understanding the suffering of each and every having a feeling of unbearable compassion for all beings, and wishing to free them, free all beings from suffering, not just temporarily, but forever. Right? Not just giving this person right now, but wanting to free them from suffering forever. And then, so bodhicitta has two wishes. It has the wish to free others from suffering. And that is the main driving force. Passion for others from suffering. And then that drives us to think about, well, how can I do that? How can I free others from suffering ever? Understanding how limited we are now. How, as long as we still have mental afflictions, we still don't have control over our minds. We are still revolving in this, and we're limited. The others from So understanding that in order to be graceful, in order to free others from suffering, or help free others from suffering, we need to get out of samsara ourselves. We need to develop our highest potential. We need to develop complete enlightenment. We need more wisdom. The greatest wisdom to understand how to benefit, understand how to speak to others in a way that they will listen. The wisdom that can see whether a person is open to being, wisdom to see what another person's karma is, what they need, as well as the compassion, unlimited compassion that is willing to stick by that being, person or that being who is resistant or is belligerent or is uncooperative or is, requires a lot of patient understanding over a long period of time. Right? We need a deep, stable compassion. So bodhicitta, love and compassion is a decision. It's a decision to follow the path of opening ourselves to others. It's a decision to follow the path of going beyond our narrow self and our own selfish concern. It's a decision to not be primarily concerned about my own comfort, but to open to the world and give benefit. It's a decision, right? Actually, yeah, it's as a Chogyam Trungpa says, it implies that instead of holding on to our own individual territory and defending it tooth and nail, we become open to the world. It's a decision and a willingness to take on greater responsibility for others. It's a willingness to, right, to do it ourselves, not leave it up to others. Ourselves for the peace in the world, for the happiness in the world, for the enlightenment and removing the suffering. So based on, right, and it's unbiased. It's not wanting to free my family and my friends from samsara and based on this kind of unbiased, even-minded concern for all beings. Chogyam Trungpa is it, the Bodhisattva about means no longer trying to build up our own grandiosity, our own, our own status, our own reputation, our own security, our own comfort, our own protection, but just trying to become and able to help others. We're acknowledging that we're not going to be further instigators, further chaos and misery in the world. Instead, we're going to be curious, inspired to work on ourselves as well as work with other people. It requires that we're not completely tired and put off by people and their neuroses, their selfishness. We're willing to get in there and work with others, with all of this. And it also involves working with ourselves and our own blockages and our own resistance, our own stuff that holds us back. Working with our own anger and our selfishness, our own obsessions, and to do so because they hold us back from developing our greatest, developing the we all have some compassion, and we all have in us the potential to expand that out infinitely. It is our very nature to be able to have that potential, to be able to expand out infinitely. And the things that are holding us back are the self-centered mind, attachments to me, I want, my needs, and my happiness, and not right first and foremost. And so what holds us back from reaching our greatest potential, holds us back from developing infinite love is primarily self-centered, as well as fundamental ignorance, concrete self, and making that solid distinction between other, of our preoccupation. But the mental affliction, fundamental confusion, and that self-centered mind is not intrinsic to our nature. They are there. They can be removed, not in our very nature. They're just habits. They're just habits. Developing our hearts fully, expanding our hearts fully involves step by step, just planting imprints of care for others, imprints of curiosity, imprints of trying to understand, imprints of kind thoughts and kind imprints of listening with care. Imprints. And at the same time, working on reducing those things that block us, achieving, block us from attaining our highest happiness. So, imprints of counteracting that, counteracting acting or trying to counteract our judgmental mind, trying to counteract our selfishness, counteract our obsessive desire and attachment. So in each moment of each day, right, the arc of the path is so much about putting those drops in the bucket, putting those imprints on our minds, gradually, organically, step by step, our minds become more and more, hearts become more and more and less angry, less judgment, less unholy, less rational. So it's a step-by-step process. And so we'll get into in a moment, we'll get into the method. Because there's a step-by-step method to do it. Right? A friend of mine recently was saying something about how when she was growing up, she wanted to learn to be like, she wanted to be that, but she didn't know how. Right? And one of the beauties of Buddhism is there's a very systematic method that's laid out that if we follow it over time will get us from to that to, becoming a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva being someone who has real bodhicitta, genuine bodhicitta in their as kind of their makeup. Is not just a flash in the pan once in a while, which is what we get from the fact that we get moments of inspiration, periods in which we have stronger bodhisattva is someone who is has that all the time. So I just wanted to read a couple of quotes with regard to bodhicitta. The first one by Shantideva. Those who wish to destroy the many sorrows of existence, those who wish all beings to experience a multitude of joy, and those who wish to experience much happiness, the bodhicitta has the power to destroy the suffering, as well as experience the highest happiness. Bodhicitta will experience the highest happiness. As long as the Rinpoche is so much happiness. Bodhicitta, so much happiness. So much more happiness than we can have. Normal people experiencing the normal pleasures and successes and love in life. So much more than so much more. Thanks to Dalai Lama says the precious awakening mind of Bodhicitta, greatest pillar of the there is no more virtuous mind than There's no more powerful mind. There's no more joyous mind. To accomplish one's own purpose. To accomplish the purpose of others and to be. The awakening mind of bodhicitta is unsurpassable way to attain enlightenment. It is the quickest and easiest way to purify negativity from protection from interference. It is the unique and all-encompassing. I think if we really contemplate, really observe our own lives and our own state of mind over a period of time, we come to see that the biggest inhibitor of our happiness, of our joy, is occupation of me. How others see me, my success, my reputation, my state, that the preoccupation brings in anger, don't treat us the way we think down. It's a burden that we're carrying with us. Then, in those periods, those glimpses, or those periods in which we forget about really just present, when we're really in the flow, when we're really there for another person. Forget about the burden is lifted, burden is temporarily feel lighter, feel a sense of wellness, joy, freedom from carrying around that. And we all experience the mountain climber, so present, the preoccupation, me and fear.
Emily, I think we're losing you a bit again. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, dang, I thought I had fixed that. Okay, so I may have to look into getting those. So anyway, so that the fear and the right, like for a mountain climber, you know, I'm not a mountain climber, but I've read and heard. So if the preoccupation of me, it's in there, and the fear and the anxiety gets into the mind, and that creates a really dangerous situation. And similarly, our well-being, our joy, our lightness of being, that preoccupation with me endangers that joy and that lightness of being. We'll talk about this more as we go through the method for developing. And then you see that, like, you can see that also in beings like Dalai Lama, Buddhist, who don't have a strong self-centered mind, right? We can all sense the lightness of being, joy, like the easy access to the joy that they have, right? The deep, joyous laughter that they break out into. It's not like a forced laughter. Um, Joyful, spontaneous expression of joy. It happens only when we're in this strong preoccupation of me is not present not in manifest. So the more we see that, the more we get that, the more we understand, not only just intellectually understand in our being that the self preoccupation, self-centered mind is the biggest enemy to my own happiness and joy. And then we can really understand how bodhicitta, the mind, heart of bodhicitta, right, that's really concerned about the benefit of others, really concerned about this suffering of others and wishing to free them from that suffering. How that can be happiest mind, the most joyful mind, because it's free from the burden of the self. And even, right, and even in, when we, in those times when we're trying to help someone, we have compassion for someone, we're trying to help, we're caregiving for the other. When we get burned out, or when it's too much for us, is usually concern about. I didn't say that the way I wanted to say it. What makes us suffer, I'll say, when we're caring for somebody else, when we're taking care of somebody else, what makes us suffer most oftentimes is our feeling of our helplessness, our inability to remove our, there's the sense of me that gets in there that makes it the most, or our inability to be with that. But if we delete me out of that equation, we notice how much a greater ability to be, a greater that me, what's going to happen to me, my limitations, I can't do anything. Okay, I'm done. Got got off a little bit. So hopefully you get a bit of a sense of what bodhicitta, passionate, heartfelt concern for others and wishing for them to be free from suffering forever. And then understanding that, well, in order to do that, my highest potential, I need to attain enlightenment. I need to, my mental afflictions block me from my greatest compassion, my greatest wisdom. So bodhicitta, the compassionate wish to attain complete enlightenment for the welfare of all things. So there are these two wishes, the wish to free and then the wish to attain complete enlightenment. And between those two, concern for the welfare of all sentients, the wish to free, that is the driving aim. So, one more quote by Longzop Rinpoche. Happiness begins when we start to cherish others. And the whole thing comes down to living daily life. This way, life does not get wasted. Full of joy. This is the way to live a very meaningful life. The most meaningful life. Live our life with this bodhicitta, with the genuine heartfelt whenever. All right, so I'm way behind schedule. So the method, how do we get there? How do we get from where we are now to having bodhicitta? How do we get from where we are now to a place where our primary concern is the welfare? I mean, and you know, and the welfare of ourselves as well. The welfare of all sentient beings. Not so being concerned with our own welfare. Also, we need to not forget about that. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to know what our capabilities are. We need to set compassionate boundaries. So not forgetting about ourselves. We need to have loving kindness and compassion for ourselves as the very basis for being able to have that. So we need that, and don't forget about that. And we try to take care of ourselves and love ourselves as one of countless sentients. Not with a me first kind of attitude, not being self-centered, not being preoccupied with ourselves, not being self-indulgent, caring about ourselves as one of countless beings, not as being one. That's kind of the aim, step by step. Okay, so next on the next slide. So there are three methods, well, two main methods that are discussed for developing bodhicitta, and then a combination of them. There's the sevenfold cause and effect method in the tradition of Saint Lama and Tisha. And then there's the equalizing, exchanging oneself and others. Shantideva, Mr. Shantideva, another great developed that method. There's the combined method, 11 points. Lama Tsongkhapa put together. On the next slide, I'll just go over briefly sevenfold cause and effect method starts as its very basis, equanimity. So I'm going to go backwards and start from share something that Lama Tsongkhapa, the founder of the Buddhist tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, he wrote that Buddhahood, right, complete enlightenment, Buddhahood comes from bodhicitta. So without bodhicitta, we can never attain the Buddhahood comes from. Oh, and let's keep that slide up. So Buddhahood comes from bodhicitta. Bodhicitta comes from the extraordinary attitude. So the extraordinary attitude is the highest, like the great compassion, is the great compassion that takes responsibility ourselves. So bodhicitta comes from taking responsibility. The extraordinary attitude or taking responsibility comes from great compassion. Great compassion is compassion for all beings without exception, without bias. So it doesn't exclude anyone. And great compassion comes from great love. And love is the wish, the heartfelt wish for all beings to have. And then that great love comes from, and this isn't on the screen, that comes from having a sense of affection and cherishing. A sense of affection, a sense that all beings are attractive, all beings, a sense of feeling of closeness to all beings, feeling, and then that sense of closeness is developed by the first 3 steps. Traditionally, which we'll get into. All beings is pay the kindness, which is really difficult for many of us. So we'll talk about how we can. And then so those first 3 steps are to help us develop that feeling of closeness to all beings, cherishing all beings. And then that comes from a basis of equanimity. So equanimity here means like this even-mindedness that reduces the attachment we have towards some and the aversion we have toward others, and even-minded attitude we'll get into. So yeah, so that's the idea. So bodhicitta can only come if we have great compassion for all beings. But if, great compassion for all beings is, we can only have great compassion for all beings if we have a feeling of closeness and of affection, right? If we ponder somebody's suffering, if we see somebody's suffering, understand someone's suffering, but there's somebody we don't care about at all, or there's somebody that we have issues with, someone that we have aversion toward, or someone we have anger toward, then when we see their suffering, we may think, well, who cares? Um, and it doesn't make a difference to me, and maybe they deserve it. Okay? Or if we see somebody suffering and we're indifferent to them, people or animals, then when we see them suffering, we have indifference. Or I mean, we may have a little bit of compassion, but not enough to take action, not enough to do anything about it. So in order for our compassion to be deep and strong and willing to make the effort to help others, we need to see them as close and dear and have a sense of affection toward them. And so that's what this first three steps. And then if we don't have equanimity, okay, so let's go to the next slide, and then we'll talk about equanimity. So the equalizing and exchanging self and others is the second method by Shantideva. So the first method of sevenfold cause and effect, I find is very effective for developing a feeling of warmth and closeness and affection towards sentient beings, from a heartfelt sense, and a heartfelt sense of appreciation and gratitude for that tends to bring the warmth and the affection. The second method by Shantideva, equalizing and exchanging self and others, I find that the strength here is it's more intellectual. It's more kind of appealing to logic, and it's also working straight on with the self. Because one thing I noticed that even if we do the first method, it's still easy to make it about me. I find that it's easy for us, we sentient beings, to make anything about me. Even our practice of loving kindness and compassion. Look at how compassionate I am. Look at what a kind person I am. Look at, I'm such a helpful person. It's so easy to make it about me, and hard to let go of that, because it's so deeply embedded in all of us since forever. And so the second method gets right at, and then the third method combines the two. So that's on the next slide. The combined 11-point method. So in this class, I thought we would only have time really to go through the combined. On the next slide, we'll start with the first point of equanimity. So in the next slide, after this, Lama Tsongkhapa says to start with, not accomplish an equanimous mind, having stopped the bias of attachment towards some sentient being, hatred or aversion toward others. Any love and compassion that will arise with partiality. Yeah? So equanimity So equanimity here is developing an even-minded attitude toward all beings, not cherishing some beings as being worthy of compassion and others as being unworthy, not having strong attachment for some and not having strong aversion toward others, but trying to even that out the starting ground, even out the foundation. Otherwise, if you don't start out with this equanimity, any love and compassion that we develop in these methods along the path will continue to be biased, continue to be more toward those that we have attachment toward, continue to have aversion toward others. Right? And it's similar to right before building a house, there needs to be a nice, even foundation. There isn't an even foundation upon which you build, then the stability of the entire house is compromised. So similarly, if we don't start by developing some level of equanimity, trying to develop some level of it, then our love and compassion can't be stable and they're always biased. Right? And as we were discussed previously, right, my bodhichitta is developing unbiased, right, caring, concern for all, striving to be the greatest benefit. So on the next slide is a quote by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The love and compassion we seek to cultivate in Dharma practice is based on having an equal-hearted sense of concern for all beings, simply because they exist and want happiness and not suffering, just as we do. So equanimity, trying to remove at least the strong attachment and aversion we have. And it's not indifference. Equanimity is not indifference. The idea is to develop a sense of care and concern eventually. So the reflection is, so there are two kind of thought experiments and reflections on the next slide that Kamalashila mentions in his healing stages of meditation. And so the first one is, so there are the first one is related to from their side, their perspective. And the second reflection is from my side. And actually, and before I get into that, you probably already heard this, but in general, we all tend to divide beings up into three categories, right? Those that we really care about, we're concerned about, we try to help. That when they're suffering, it pains us. So the category of usually called friends. And then there's the category that we have that is usually called enemies, or I call difficult beings. Those that we have a lot of difficulty with, we have aversion toward, we have anger toward, hostility toward. And then everybody else, right? The strangers in which we have neither strong caring for nor strong aversion for. But everybody else that we probably, that we don't really think about, that we may have indifference toward. So these three categories of beings that we've possibly never really examined, why we have separate beings into those three categories as if they're fundamentally different, as if they're like from their side, as if they're fundamentally different, like and some deserving of caring and others deserving of indifference, others deserving of harm. Right? As if they're fundamental, right? From their side, there's something fundamentally different about them. And therefore, we have a different orientation for those three categories. So in these contemplations, we're challenging that orientation. We're challenging that kind of assumption that there's a fundamental difference between those categories of beings. So the first contemplation is from their side of how they, all beings are the same at the deepest level, at the deepest, right? They're all the same. They're wanting to have happiness, wanting to at the core of their very being, their deepest longing, happiness, to have things go well for them, to have cared about, to be treated with respect, to be treated with dignity, to be treated with consideration, to have health and wellness, to not be dismissed, to not be ignored, to not be sick, to not be poor, to have a decent quality of life. Everybody has those same longing at their very core. And so if that's the case, then come with Sheila saying, then it's appropriate to benefit from have a I know it makes sense kind of logically to work for others. Others equally, all equally wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So that's the first contemplation. And we try to contemplate this one at the heart level, at the feeling level, right? Not just at the intellectual level, not just saying in our head, trying to get down into the heart and feel how important it is for ourselves and for others, how happiness and wellness and health and safety and security, how much we long for that and how much that drives pretty much everything that we do and how it's the same for everybody else. Even if you look at insects, they have the same drive, like the ants were, are working together to get food, right? Because they want food, they want to survive, they want, right? And if you get too close to the ants, then they scatter out of fear because they want safety. They're trying to protect themselves. They have the exact same this desire for safety and survival. I mean, we all have our own specific objects, that we think will bring us happiness. We have our different priorities, but at the very basic fundamental level, we all have happiness. The first contemplation, and the second contemplation, actually, I don't think we have time to get into today. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go do the first contemplation today, and then next week we'll get into the second. I definitely want to save time to do the meditation itself, because it's the meditation that is what's going to change our minds. Right? We can think about it all we want, but it's really the repeated practice, the repeated meditation that change our minds. So we did this summer in the compassion class. It certainly doesn't hurt to do it again. It's something that is useful to do as often as realistically possible. So let's spend the last part of the class. And before we do that, is there any questions about what I covered so far? I'm sorry I do all the talking. You can just unmute yourself and ask questions, and then we'll do the.
It's interesting for me to hear that it's really, I mean, the I always gets in the way. The I that His Holiness says, the I we always carry around, it's always getting in the way. So I find that, that whole idea, you just can't take bodhicitta away from emptiness or emptiness away from bodhicitta, because until we eradicate, until we dissolve, until we get the right view, we're stuck with just a semblance of compassion and not the real thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's a really important point, Jackie, and I'm glad you brought that up. That right, bodhicitta and emptiness go together. Yeah. And there's a certain level of compassion for sure we can get without emptiness, but not the full, right? The full the great, the fullest, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. We can achieve like a certain level of bodhicitta without realizing emptiness. So when we look at the five paths, the five Mahayana paths, right, we can get bodhicitta first, or we can realize emptiness first. But right away, after getting bodhicitta, in order to deepen and fully develop that bodhicitta, we need to realize. And then the emptiness reinforces and deepens our bodhicitta. Our bodhicitta and our compassion reinforces and deepens our experience of emptiness. So they work hand in hand, and each helps the other. Yeah, thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
But I don't want you to get discouraged if you haven't gotten emptiness yet. It doesn't mean we can't get compassion and bodhicitta. We can work on them hand in hand, and we can develop a certain level of compassion and bodhicitta without emptiness. It's not the full blown thing.
No, I never meant that, but yeah, they're just so interrelated. Just
exactly.
There's no separation. And
Well, let's do the contemplation, do the meditation, and it's really important. The other thing I want to make sure I don't forget to mention, because it's really important to contemplate each of the three categories individually, right? Not just to do an amorphous mass of all sentient beings in any of these meditations, right? Amorphous mass of all sentient beings. Oh, I have compassion for all sentient beings, loving kindness for all sentient beings. All sentient beings are very easy to develop compassion for, right? Individuals are difficult to develop compassion for, right? So just remember, we need to keep it on the ground with individual people and beings. And these, we can do the three categories or individuals, but we need, we definitely need to keep it real and to keep it on the ground and not just develop love and compassion for all sentient beings on a cushion, right? Until we go out on the street and, and the person cuts us off and we get angry. So we need to develop, right? If the difficult person for us is the person who cuts us off, then we meditate on people who cut us off and develop, right, love and compassion. All right, so all right, we don't have much time to do meditation, but we'll try. We go over a little bit. So let's sit with our, in our meditation posture once again. Just focus on our breath for a few moments. And then in our mind's eye, imagine in front of us the three groups of beings. Friends, our family, those we care about. And difficult beings in our lives. Politicians, the difficult family members and coworkers, neighbors. And also those beings we have aversion toward, maybe cockroaches or mosquitoes. And then everybody else. Clerks, killers, and as well as all the other animals, types of beings that we don't have a strong feeling for either way. Let's begin by focusing on a group of beings. Children, our friends. And so starting with ourselves, get in touch with our basic longing for happiness. Maybe putting your attention at the level of the heart. How we want things to go well for us. How we want safety, respect, and consideration. How we want to be loved and cared for. Security, safety, success. We want others to treat us well. Similarly, our loved ones, those that I care about, they also, at their heart level, want happiness. They want things to go well for them. They want to feel secure and safe. They want to be treated with consideration. They want to be treated as if they matter. They don't want pain and problems. They don't want to be dismissed or disrespected. They don't want to be treated as if they don't matter. And moving, how much time moving to the group of strangers. Neutral being. People on the street, gas station attendant, grocery store worker, bus driver, house cleaners and janitors and immigrants, everyone. Like that's at their very at the core of their go well for them. Cared for, loved. Want success and security. Treated with respect and consideration. Don't, don't want to be ignored or dismissed. Don't want to be down on. Don't want to be treated as if you don't matter. And finally, the difficult being annoying people in our lives, or the politicians we have a really hard time with, the spiders, the cockroaches, the mice, beings that we have aversion toward. It's like us, they want to be happy. They want to be safe. And to be cared for, treated with respect. Want to be treated as if we matter. Don't want to be sick. Want to be helpless. Don't want to be disrespected, dismissed, or ignored. Don't want to be treated as if they don't matter. So like this, each and every single sentient being. Difficult ones to the disease. Same with the core aspiration. Happiness. Knowledge. Stay with this heartfelt feeling. Mm. Whatever merit or positive energy we created today. Help us along our path and our love and compassion toward others. Help us develop and deepen our bodhicitta. May we attain the full-blown bodhicitta and complete enlightenment. So that we can so that we can have the capability of truly being effective in helping others remove their suffering permanently. May there be peace and harmony in the world. Country. May there be wellness. Hey, thank you. Sorry I went over. We extended the class by 15 minutes and still I went over. But next time I'll try to keep within the time frame. We had a lot to cover today. And I'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any questions or comments about the meditation or anything in the class. If anyone wants to share how that was for them or any doubts or concerns. I don't want to take up too much of Catherine's time, which she's very busy, but maybe just a few minutes. Is that okay, Catherine?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Emily.
It might not take any time at all because there won't be any questions or comments. I mean, I'll make one comment in that every time I do this reflection, I get a bit of an aha. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I mean, I wonder if anybody else.
Yeah, I was going to say also that that felt like time really well spent for me doing that reflection. It helped heal and kind of resolve things for me in ways that things that I usually try to do to feel better don't. And so I'm just glad that there was that time for that. I hope I do it more. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Great. Yeah, and that's what I forgot to mention is, it's good if, like, between this week and next week, we try to do it every day. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the cushion, but it can be, when we're in line at the grocery store, right? And just reflect on how that person just wants happiness. And it just makes a huge difference in our perspective because we forget, right? We forget to orient ourselves that way. So, yeah. Thanks, Anthony.
It is hard to, 1 minute, do I have myself muted? Yeah, I'm unmuted. It is, how can I say, as soon as I can see a group of strangers and I have nothing but wanting them to be happy and, suffering because they didn't do anything to me. But if I label that group of strangers something like New Yorkers, then I have a certain, you know what I'm saying? I have a certain image and then it's more of a challenge. And I guess that's like that with any group, you start labeling and bringing up generalized opinions start coming. You know how it is. The labeling is where the problem arises.
Yeah, or believing in the label.
Yes, right? How we do that.
And our bias is about that group of, that type of person. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. Yeah. And so that's really useful to notice in our minds, like where we really have like the challenges, where, right, and then to do the reflection on those particular using that label, right? If it's New Yorkers or, Republicans or Democrats or
Yeah.
a very, on the ground example for many of us right now, right? Or for some people, certain ethnic groups, or if it's immigrants or, white supremacists, or, it's just very useful to notice in our own minds where we get caught. It's like, ooh, where the aversion arises. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really important and insightful comment.
You better get a drink, Emily.
One of the things that I notice is when I'm looking at the categories of friends, enemies, strangers, that it can almost be like this kind of spinning, the group is kind of spinning, going from one to the other, depending on the moment. That I have somebody I care deeply about that I'm mad at, or somebody that I've been mad at that does what I want, or, even with the strangers, using the example of the recent election, watching election results come in over the course of days, my feelings about strangers fluctuated depending on whether or not I felt like it was reflecting what I wanted. And so to kind of, work with that as impermanent and arbitrary and just in my mind, as well, I think is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And you're actually previewing what we're going to talk about next week the changing of those. So, yeah, how impermanent those the people and beings are in this group. So we'll get into that more next week, as well as we'll get into the affectionate love, attracted love.
Cool.
Thank you, Heather. If that's it, we'll close for today. Thank you for attending. I mean, I personally think that this subject is the most important subject right now in this country and in this world, with so much negativity and hatred and violence, just floating around with the divisiveness that, this subject is the most important subject in the world, I think, right now for everyone. So thank you for coming and spending hours with me and exploring the subject together. And next week we'll try to make it more interactive, less than a
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Emily, if you need any different microphone equipment, I think I could hear you a lot better as you went. We're happy to offer and help cover whatever equipment you need for the teaching. So just let me know.
Yeah. So it did sound better as we went along?
Yes.
For me,
I don't,
yeah,
not so much for me, actually.
yeah,
It felt like it feels like it's still the same issue of that when you start it, the longer you speak, the more it drops off, and it feels like it's just your natural register drops because that's how you're speaking. So the microphone's just not picking it up unless you're at like the same tone the whole time with no modulation.
yeah,
I don't know if that's the same for other people or not, but
that's for me too. Yeah, Emily, also, I know it's so hard, but I notice because, and Justin does the thing, as he starts a sentence, as he does start higher, and then when you're thinking, your head tilts down. And I do think maybe some of that tilting of the head also isn't picking up the microphone. So I'm so sorry, because we all do that. We all move as we talk. So it's not anything you're within your control, but that's just my observation. So I just throw it out there.
Yeah, that is good to know. Thanks. Yeah, and I don't know how much I can control that, because I just,
Yeah, right.
Once I start going, I'm not thinking about my body, what I'm doing with my head. Otherwise, I'll get too.
They're very difficult to, not get self-conscious under those circumstances, and you're just reflecting. So yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I will try, but also it's really good to hear your impressions and your, how it's coming into you. I'll see, I'll do some research on microphones as well, and because that should help. I'm sitting a lot closer to the camera than the camera microphone. The camera and the microphone are in the same device. I'm sitting closer than I have been, but still, it seems like there's an issue because there's a
drop off.
Myself. So,
maybe if you got a standalone, and as Catherine said, be happy to help with that. And I would just like to give voice to the fact that I really never care that I pick up every single word a person says. So please take it as a great compliment that I want to hear every single word you say.
Nice way of putting it. Yeah.
And it also happens to have the benefit of being true. But if there's some, I don't know if a standalone microphone would help, or if that also brings up the same EMF issues. But I know that we'd be happy to try to solve that with you.
That's sweet of you. But yeah, absolutely. It's very important for people to be able to hear me if I'm So,
It's our obscure, it's funny because really it's our karma, it's our obscurations, I can't help thinking that. Like you want to get that dharma, you want it.
Right. If we were all Buddhas, we wouldn't even have to
Yeah,
log into Zoom.
Right, it would be
yeah, and yeah.
We'll
And
create the causes.
okay, all the best this week. Good luck with your practice and
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Emily.
Bye.
oh my gosh, yeah. Anyway. Thanks for hosting.